Hello, welcome to Kaiser Tutorials. Today we're going to embark on SwiftUI's new library, Swift Charts. What is Swift Charts? We'll find out now. So Swift Charts actually makes it much easier for you to incorporate charts inside of your project. Before you had to come up with a map, you had to do everything, canvas everything for yourself. That may take hours to do to get it just right. But now Apple has just introduced this library that does everything right out the box in iOS for iOS 16, iPad OS 16 and beyond. Let's get started. Let's first create our project. So we're going to call the project Swift Charts Tutorial. How creative. We're going to be using the interface SwiftUI, language Swift. We don't need a core data or tests. Create the project. We'll be using the NVVM architecture. That's a model view model architecture. So what we're going to do, we're going to start out by creating a simple model that we'll use to store the data, the dummy data that we'll be using in this tutorial. I'm using the new beta version of Xcode. So let's create a new model. Let's call it sales history model. So we're going to be looking at the trend of sales over 5 months. So from January to May. We're going to make this model be identifiable, and we're just going to have three properties. The first one is a ID, which will act as a unique identifier. We'll make it a string, and we'll use the UUID library, and let's convert that to be a string. Then we're going to track the month, and the month will be a string as well. Next, we'll have something that will track how many sales that was made in that particular month. So let's call that amount of sales. Let's make that one be a int, and let's initialize it to be 0. Next, we'll need a view model. So let's create a class and call this sales view model. We want to be descriptive so that our next developer is able to identify what this class is about. It will be an observable object. And let's create a dummy variable. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a publishable array so that the interface can listen to it. So let's call the array sales trends, and we're going to make it be of type an array of sales history. Let's change the name to sales history model, so it's, as I said before, be a little bit more descriptive. So sales history model. Then we're going to create a few dummy variables. Let's see, sale history. So in the context of the charts, the month is going to act as the independent variable, or the x, so it's going to be on the x-axis, and the sales is the dependent variable, which will act on the y-axis. Okay, so let's just create a few models. So sale history model. Let's initialize some dummy variables. So we're going to say month, and let's say Jan for January. Then we're going to say amount of sales. Let's say 10. In the interest of time, let's just copy this one, and we're going to duplicate it 4 times for February, March, April, and May. So let's say Feb for February, and let's increment it to 20. So 20. Then next one, March. We could say this one is 25. Then for April, April could be 35. So you can see that the sales is trending upward. Then we'll have May, which will have 50. Okay, now that we have that dummy data, let's now look at creating the first basic chart. So the first basic chart that we can create is let's first create an extension, content view, just to clean up the interface. So we can remove the dummy data that's here. And what we'll do, we'll create a view. We're going to create a private var, and let's call this one basic bar chart section, which will be of some view. Okay, and let's call a v stack inside there. Let's call it within this view. Let's wrap everything inside of a scroll view. We could have used embed to encapsulate it around it. Alright, so what we're going to do now, so in order for you to use this library, you have to import the library called charts. So import charts. Okay, so what you'll do now is say charts so similar to a for loop, we'll call it element in. So we need right here, we need the data source that will be populating the chart. So what we'll need to do in our context is call the view model, the sales view model. So we'll say state object var, let's just call it VM. You can call it whatever you want. If you're using multiple view models, it's suggested to say example sales underscore view VM or something. Let's say sales view model sales. Okay, so what we'll do is call the variable, so VM slash sales trends. And so now we have access to all the dummy data that we just created. And all we need to do is that we'll need to define inside of this is actually a chart, not charts. Not chart, it's actually a chart, not charts. So what we'll need to do now is just define what type of chart are we going to be using. So in this case, we're going to use bar mark to indicate that we want a bar chart. And we'll indicate what is on the x-axis. So on the x-axis, we're going to say value, and we'll define a label. So in our case, we're going to call the label. So the label on the chart, so we have the chart, and we have the label on the y-axis and the x-axis. So we'll call it month, and we'll say that we'll get the value element dot and month. Okay, so next we want to, so we just defined the x-axis. Now we want to define what's on the y-axis. So you guessed it, it's going to be on the y-axis is going to be sales. So we could say amount of sales. Sorry, I need to encapsulate it inside of value. Then we'll call element dot amount of sales. Okay. As you can see right here inside of a preview at the side on the right hand side, it's kind of squished. So we'll just need to set a frame so that it's more visible. So we'll just give it a frame height of 300. You can set it whatever you like, and now it's visible. So this is a basic bar chart. We can make many variants. So what we're going to do now, we're going to modify this basic basic code and create more and more complex versions. Like for example, say we don't want all our bars to have the same color, want to differentiate it. Well, the library is able to randomly select and assign colors individually. So we're going to just quickly modify this one and demonstrate how to do that. So here, if you would like various colors, so I'm going to give it a different name. So we're going to just call it the varying color. Bar chart. Bar chart section. I'm going to call it inside of the main view. As you can see it right here, it shows up right there. Then what I'll need to do is on the bar mark, I need to define the foreground style. So let me make some space. So foreground style, then by, and then we'll call it value. So we'll define what it is that we would like to apply the style and color to. So we'll say month. Then we'll call element.month, and voila. And you also notice that there are labels at the bottom for this bar chart. Okay, there are various others you could do. Say for example, you don't want it to randomly assign a color. You can go ahead and actually define your own set of colors. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go back into the view model and we're going to define our own set of colors, and then we'll use it within the chart. Okay, so back in the view model, let's just say let bar element colors. So we'll let this be of type color. Okay. So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. So we're going to define 5 colors. So we could say the first color is green. You could write it like that. It already knows that you're talking about colors, or it can explicitly say color dot and then blue, then dot black. Then we can say dot orange. Dot teal. Okay, so we have defined those colors. So what we're going to do, we're going to again copy the previous work that we did, and we're going to say custom. Let's just call it custom color, and we'll call it here I'm going to run. Okay. What I'm going to do, since we're not using the first one, we'll just remove the first one. And then now we'll go into the custom color bar chart, and we'll now start to define our custom color. So in order to define a custom color, we need to go outside of the chart and now define the chart foreground style scale. So above frame, we're going to call chart foreground style scale, and we're going to define the domain and the range. So domain. So what you'll have inside domain, so we're going to call the sales trend. So VM dot sales trends. Then we're going to use a compact map to map the variables. So compact map. Then inside a compact map, we're going to go ahead and call it sale month, or you can call it whatever you want. Then we're going to map it, so it's going to be a conditional string just in case it is empty. And then we're going to say in, and then we're going to call month. So inside of sale month, we're going to call month. All right. So now that we have defined the domain, we're going to go ahead and define the range. So range, and then here in the range is where we're going to call the custom colors that we had defined. So vm dot bar colors, and you can now see the colors show up here. So what happens if for example you're in dark mode or something? So let's see how it looks in dark mode. And the beauty about the new Xcode is that you're able to see it without writing too many previews, how it's going to look in the various schemes. So as you notice in dark mode here, you can't see it. So what we could do in this case, just as an example, we could go back inside of the colors that we created. Instead of saying black, we could say primary. And as you know, primary color dot secondary changes according to if the system is experiencing dark mode or light mode. Okay, so now that we have defined that one, let's go on to add annotations to our code. So let's copy the previous one just to save time. So we're gonna say custom color chart annotation section. So okay, and what I'm gonna do, I'm going to comment out the variant colors. Since on this preview it's only able to show 2 at a time without starting the preview and showing scrolling. Alright, so what we'll now need to do, we'll need to call annotation. So what annotation means is that if you want to show something on top or at some position of the charts, maybe it could be money, it could be anything that you want, you are able to now define that. So inside of the bar, the chart itself, you can go in and call annotation. So inside of annotation, you will need to define the position. So in our case, so we'll say, let's define a position. So you can define it leading, top, or anywhere that you would like. In our case, we want it to be the top. And then inside of the annotation, we'll call what it is that we would like inside there. So in our case, it's called system, and we're going to use the system. We're going to use the system icons. So we're going to use camera.macro. And if you notice here, you can see the camera macros showing up right here. And you can use foreground color. And so with foreground color, you're able to change the color as you like. So in our case, we'll use secondary. Voila. And that's how you add annotation to the bar chart. And the beautiful thing about charts is that you're able to convert it to various other types with just little code. As you can see, it's easy for you to make modifications. So what if you would like a different type of chart? Maybe you'd like a line chart or so. There's not much changes that you'll need to do in order to do that. So what I'm going to do, we're going to create a custom line chart. So I'll just copy the previous code and we're going to create a line chart. So let's update this and just call it line chart section. This simplifies the process so much. All we need to do, if we want to create the chart, we just need to go in and say, instead of bar, we just say a line. Now, there may be some things that I would want to change based on the behavior, because for a line chart, you may not want an annotation in it. So what you'll do, you just remove the annotation. Right? You remove the annotation, and what you'll do, instead of the foreground style being having a value of month, what we'll go in and just say that we want example color dot orange. And now you can see that we have a line chart here, and we can customize it in many ways. So we can even do things like say that we would like the curve to flow a certain way, so we could make it be stepped, we could make it be more steeply curved or so on, or jagged. So what we'll do, we'll use what is called Interpolation Method, and then we can define it. So if we say step center, you notice that it becomes like stairs, but we'll use cardinal in our case, and that's all you have to do to convert it to a line. If similarly, if you would like it to be a rectangle, let's just copy this and just call it rectangle. Rectangle chart section. So here, instead of saying line, we'll just say rectangle. And voila, we have rectangles. And similarly, we have different types, such as area mark. So we could just go in, copy this, and we'll say area mark. So I'll show you how to use area mark. So let's add it to the view. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll remove the rectangle and just say area. And now it's in the form of an area mark. And we could even go a step further. Say we wanted to have a ruler, we can add a ruler to it as well. So all we have to do is we'll just go here and say rule mark, and we'll say that we want the rule mark to be on the y-axis. So value, the midpoint, so we're just going to call this midpoint, and say we know that the midpoint is at 25, say 25, and voila, it's right in the middle. That's all it is. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next tutorial. Take care.